I'm the director of BICS, the Brandenburg Institute for Society and Security. And you find yourself in the center of Brandenburg, called Berlin. The Berliners hate it when we say that, but it is what it is. They are surrounded by us and they are in the middle. But we thought when we organized this conference, it would be easier, at least for those of you who come from abroad, to come here to Berlin with the proximity of the airport. But one has to say, this city here, Berlin, is exciting for those of you who have not been there here before. But Potsdam, where we come from, is much more beautiful. So if you have the time, maybe you should consider taking the S-Bahn out to Potsdam, which is more or less a suburb to Berlin, and visit BICS and all the nice castles that you find there. So here you are at Humboldt University. And even though our Italian friends pride themselves of having the oldest university in the world, all modern universities are based on this one, on the university that was founded in 1810 by Wilhelm von Humboldt, the big reformer of the Prussian state, after the country just has lost a war against Napoleon. He proposed the idea to the Prussian king that the rebuilding process should be an intellectual one, and therefore one needs a house for higher education where research and education are combined and are done together. And thereby he founded the Modern Research University, after which all major universities, much higher ranked than this one nowadays, are based on. In the following years, at least if you look at the German history of any discipline, 50% of all major researchers, teachers taught at this university. And if you later have the time to go to the center of the building, you see the picture of the many Nobel Prize laureates who were here and worked here at this university. However, during the Third Reich, the Humboldt University also had his infamous moments, because what you also see, and if you read the names, many of those Nobel laureates from the early 20th centuries were of Jewish origin. And therefore, they were kicked out of the university, like all the Jewish students. And this is also the place where, in front of the building, the infamous burning of the entartete books. What's entartet in English? I don't know. Degenerated books, basically from Jewish authors, were burned right in front of this building, which for this university has a special symbolism, because, well, if you are a university and people are burning books, that's like the biggest disgrace that you can do. Afterwards, so the university was originally called Friedrich Wilhelm University, so named after the king who donated this building and who opened the university in 1910. After the Second World War, this was East Berlin, so governed by the Soviets. Of course, you can say many, many bad things about the Soviets or the Russians. However, they had one very smart idea. They renamed the university after its founder and his brother. Because as you will see, when you look at the building from the Unter den Linden view, there's two statues at the entrance, one from Wilhelm von Humboldt, the founder of this university, the Prussian reformer, the other from Alexander von Humboldt, the one that is better known outside of Germany, as the second discoverer of the Americas and the probably last generalist in academia. So since then, the university is named Humboldt University, and after reunification also became much better again when it comes to research and teaching. So welcome at this historic place. For those of you who want to, we can do a little tour later after the conference, but that is something we will speak about later. Some housekeeping rules before I hand it over to Sven and we start to become extremist or discuss extremism. For the ladies, you have a big advantage. The restroom is right across the hall. For the men, you will easily get to your 10,000 steps today, because it's at the other end of this rather large building, because it has been the palace of the crown prince, of the Prussian crown prince. So it's a little bit of a walk, just straight down the hall, all the way, and then to the right. So that's where you find the restrooms. If you want to, some of you have heard that before, if you want to have lunch, then please turn to Dimitri, who is standing outside of this hall, and you can get a voucher for almost 12 euros to get food downstairs during the lunch break in the university cafeteria. Last, I turn towards the audience, the digital audience. During the process of this conference, there will be the opportunity to ask questions and to discuss with our speakers for everyone, also those people who are present here. However, if you watching this digitally have any questions or want to make any comments, I would kindly ask you to put them in the Q&A part of Teams here. That makes things much easier and is not disrupting, let's say, the flow of the discussion. So I hope that is okay for all of you watching us digitally. With that, we turn to Sven, who guided us through this wonderful project for the last 3 years. We will thank you later, but for now, maybe you introduce us into today's agenda. So please, Sven, take over.
Thank you, Tim, and thanks to all of you for coming out. Thanks to those of you that are joining online too. We couldn't be happier to have all of you with us, whether you're joining online or in person, to celebrate the special occasion with us on this special day for us as a FERMI project, and to take part in this final conference of ours. Very quickly, speaking of those of you that are joining us online, I trust you can hear me okay with a mic. Can you? Okay. That's giving me the thumbs up to proceed, so everything should be all right. So, speaking of those of you that are joining us, before we get started, I'd just like to point out that we couldn't be more excited to have such a high turnout, which for those of you who may not be involved in EU-funded projects or the EU research community is quite unusual, especially at this time of the year, because it's a very busy time. Lots of projects are being wrapped up, including ours. We're coming to a close at the end of the month, so we'll be done in just a few days. So this final conference does not mark the end of the project. It sort of marks the beginning of the end, if you will. So we still have a couple of days to go, but it is the last official gathering we're having, and we decided to make it public. And we couldn't be happier to have all of you with us today. So including those of you that are joining online, we have a crowd of more than 100 participants, which is by the standards of the research community almost a record turnout. So again, thanks to all of you for being with us and for joining us online. Speaking of the FERMI project, again, it's EU funded. It's not just Tim and me. It includes 17 partners from 10 different countries. I cannot name all of them. but I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the organizing team from BIX. That includes Tim, the head of BIX, Hannah, who's with us today, Johanna, Georgios. Johanna is joining us online. I hope I didn't forget anybody. So thanks to all of you for the hard work you've invested into this. And I'd also like to thank our dissemination managers, in particular Katerina, who's promoted this event very actively in the last days and weeks. And without her, we wouldn't be having such a huge turnout, and without BIX, there would be no conference. So in the days where everybody in Berlin is constantly wondering about how much boots we need on the ground to keep the country safe, let me thank those of you whose shoes and thumbs we had on the ground in Berlin. So thanks to all of you for making this happen. So very quickly, I don't need to ramble too long, no worries, because I know all of you can't wait to hear from the panelists, because that's what you're here for. But I want to start this off without saying at least a couple of words about the FERMI project, to give you some background and context. So FERMI stands for Fake News Risk Mitigator. In case you're here for a lecture about physics, you've come to the wrong room. I hate to have to tell you, might have come to the wrong place. As far as I can tell, Humboldt University has a pretty decent physics department, but that's not what we are doing today. So the term fake news, or the name Fake News Risk Mitigator, also already gives you a pretty good idea of what we're up to, what we do. We study the impact of disinformation or fake news, and we develop tools to mitigate the impact, the ramifications thereof. And that's what we want to talk about today in our final conference. And again, in a gathering that we decided to open up in the FERMI project, we are pretty interested in examining the impact of disinformation on the crime landscape. That's our key focus. But today we're going to talk about more than that. We're also going to talk about, as you can find out by checking out the agenda, we're also going to talk about other angles, or we'll approach the disinformation issue from other angles. We'll also hear about the impact of disinformation on democracy, on stability, on cohesion, on efforts to counter all of the ramifications disinformation can have, and on the challenges of examining the subject matter. So in particular, the purpose of this conference is threefold. We'll start off by giving you an overview of the crime landscape. That's our first panel, moderated by Georgios Koliarakis, who's anxiously waiting to get on stage. Yeah, so I'll get out of his way and turn this over to him in just a second. He'll introduce the speakers at greater length. And you'll hear from our speakers about the impact of disinformation, again, on stability, on the impact of German elections, etc., but also on ways to mitigate the subject matter. Then we'll hear about the tools, and we'll see some demonstrations on tools that have been developed, platforms that have been developed to mitigate the impact of disinformation. That session is going to be moderated by Junita Rauta, our colleague from the Police University College Finland. And last but certainly not least, after our lunch break, you'll hear about the data-related challenges of studying disinformation. That's the last panel, moderated by Flavia Gioglio, our colleague from KU Leuven. So that's the agenda. That's what you've signed up for. Hope you're as excited as I am to hear from the panelists. And as Tim said, we really look forward to making this as interactive as possible. So please don't be shy. The moderators will keep track of the time and ensure there is sufficient time for Q&A. So if you have a question, please, if you're joining us online, post it to the chat. We'll do our best to make sure that your question will get answered by the panelists. And if you're joining us here in person, just raise your hand. You'll be given the mic. Just be so kind, introduce yourself, and point out who would you like to answer, what panelist you'd like to answer, and please be considerate of the time we have. So please be concise, please be respectful, please be brief, and please make sure that your question answers the question mark. Thank you. All right, and with that being said, it is now my solemn duty to get out of the way and clear the way for our colleague Georgios Koliarakis, the moderator of panel 1. So George, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. I need to stand here. That's it. Okay. Good morning to everyone, to the people in the room and the people who are following us online. I have the pleasure to moderate the first session. And we did, not necessary, thank you. And we thought we should open the conference with examining the current diagnosis of disinformation and the hybrid threat in general. Why? Because it proved to be a moving target. It was around 10 years ago when the first signs of necessity for policy action appeared. And back then, some of us remember that the first Stratcom units, strategic communication units, were established. Often in ministries of foreign affairs, many times very close to the government, to the prime minister. Why? Because the problematic of disinformation was recognized as a threat. I mean, to be sure, disinformation is a millennia-old practice. The military analysts could recognize it really very early on, and the ones that have read Clausewitz or other analysts centuries ago could find it there as an instrument. However, what was the game changer? It was technology, and it was the spread of misinformation that has rung a bell with policymakers. Now, back then, even around 2015, 2016, the whole range of impact could not be clearly recognized. And now we are facing a situation where the societal aspects mix very strongly, even with national security aspects. That is not merely public security, but also national and international security. And I will be quoting the latest, a couple of months old, latest Europol report on serious organized crime threat assessment. I see some people from law enforcement agencies know the document, which has recognized disinformation as a key malicious enabler. On the one hand, the spread of platforms, social platforms, with artificial intelligence seems to be creating an explosive mix. This seems to be the state of play, but it is still changing. A number of foresight reports have recognized. I will be referring to the one drafted by the Joint Research Center of the European Commission that was pointing to the infiltration of disinformation in all security-related areas. And I'm saying that because ever since we have been having money poured into research, into policy countermeasures, and that's why FERMI has been one of the projects that was facing. This means by no way that the job is done. We have a lot of unfinished business. So the task of the first session is to showcase a number of current examples. And for that, we have the privilege to have here in the room 3 speakers with hands-on experience. I will briefly introduce them. Julia Smirnova from the Center for Monitoring, Analysis and Strategy in Berlin, who will be speaking about the disinformation and Russian influence operations around the German federal elections in 2025, which will be followed by Carl Larsson from the Swedish National Police Authority, who will be speaking about disinformation and how it transforms into violent extremism in Sweden. And last and not least, Panayota Kokoliou from Convergence, who will be speaking about the other side of the coin, which is the societal resilience, which is based on trust. I will be introducing the speakers very briefly now at the beginning, and I will be giving the floor to you later on. We are aiming at having also plenty of time after the three inputs for discussion in the room. Yulia Smirnova is a senior researcher having a very strong track record in investigative journalism, which I found extremely interesting. And she holds a master's in conflict, security and development from King's College in London. Thanks very much, Julia. Carl Larsson, who is an analyst at the Swedish Police Authority at the Intelligence Division. He has been for more than 10 years in intelligence, focusing on violent extremism and terrorism. And he has been working, I guess, in the respective unit, which we both know at the External Action Service. And Panayota Kokoliou is a sociologist in Athens, which has a very strong focus in criminology. And she has been involved in pretty many research projects. So she will be able to give an overview of the impacts in society. I would kindly involve Julia to take the floor. And I think this should be the first slide of the presentation. Please.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a senior researcher at CIMAS. It's a Berlin-based nonprofit focusing on monitoring and analysis of far-right extremism and disinformation. And my focus is foreign information manipulation and interference, particularly Russian disinformation. And today we'll be talking about disinformation campaigns, foreign interference campaigns that we documented around the federal election, German federal election that took place earlier this year. So before the snap election, CIMAS was running a live monitoring of online threats around the elections, focusing on far-right activities, far-right communication strategies on the one hand, and foreign interference on the other hand. So CIMAS is an organization that combines expertise where people coming from different fields, from academia, psychologists, journalists, data scientists. And we were running a real-time monitoring with the aim to document campaigns and to inform with these efforts mitigation measures by the platforms, by authorities, and also to publish our results also in real time. So in the months before the German federal election, CIMAS documented at least 4 foreign campaigns, 4 covert Russian campaigns targeting the election. The so-called doppelganger campaign, campaign by the actor known as Storm 1516, campaigns by another Russian organization called Foundation to Battle Injustice, and another CIB network closely resembling Operation Undercut. Those disinformation actors used a range of tactics such as inauthentic news websites. They used AI manipulated videos and images, but also staged videos, forged documents, and they disseminated disinformation on networks of inauthentic accounts on various mainstream social media platforms. There was a quite clear strategic aim in this kind of interference. Russian campaigns try to discredit established democratic parties and their candidates, particularly the CDU and the Greens, but also other parties as well. They supported the far-right party Alternative for Germany, and to the lesser extent the BSW, so both parties that are known for their pro-Russian stances, but they also spread divisive and polarizing narratives about migration, economy, anti-Ukrainian narratives, and immediately before the election and after the election, they launched the campaign spreading false claims about alleged election fraud. And I will be speaking in more detail about two. Sorry, the formatting, something happened to the slides when I said it, but you can see about two actors, the Doppelganger and Storm 1516. Doppelganger campaign is a Russian covert campaign that is known at least since 2022. It's a very agile disinformation actor linked to a Russian private company social design agency. This campaign is run with a close coordination with the Russian presidential administration, the Kremlin, and the core element is this campaign has been impersonation of established media outlets. So here you see an example. This is a fake website of Die Welt. Die Welt is a mainstream German publication. And the second screenshot is a news outlet that was set up as a part of this campaign. So actors behind those campaigns have been setting hundreds of inauthentic domains and websites, and then they plant their disinformation stories on the websites, either closely resembling established media outlets or websites that look like some kind of blogs. Second example is those links are disseminated on social media via inauthentic accounts. So here you see an example of a post supporting Alternative for Germany. Interestingly, it shows there's a typo. So the post reads AGD zeigt den Weg. AGD shows the way, and ADG is basically it's a Russian acronym for Alternative for Germany. So it shows that the post was probably translated maybe with some kind of help of artificial intelligence, or but this is definitely not an authentic German post. So in the run-up to the election, CMAS documented more than 1,000 posts, original posts on X. Those posts were retweeted several hundred times, and they reached more than 5 million views, according to the platform's own metrics. Although it is very likely that a lot of those are also inauthentic. So the actor behind this campaign also tries to inflate the numbers. So it doesn't mean that 5 million real people saw the posts. The Doppelganger campaign focused strongly on the CDU, tried to discredit the main candidate of the CDU for the first time, portraying him as untrustworthy, too close to business, and threat to social security. CMAS also documented negative posts about other democratic parties, the Greens and the SPD. There was support for Alternative for Germany, and Doppelganger also disseminated a video against sanctions against Russia, which was produced with the help of AI, denigrating Olaf Scholz and Robert Habeck. The second campaign that we documented, or rather two actors, Storm 1516 and Foundation to Battle Injustice. Technically, it was it was a rather interesting campaign because they also used inauthentic news websites. But typical for this campaign is that the actor comes up with a very elaborate stories for every false narrative. So they produced AI manipulated or staged videos, forged documents, and for many stories they create eyewitness personas. So, for example, you see a screenshot of a fake story claiming that the CDU candidate Friedrich Merz is allegedly has a mental illness, and for that story, they actually generated a forged document, forged medical document, AI generated or AI altered picture of Friedrich Merz, and the video with an actor playing a doctor claiming that he treated Friedrich Merz 10 years ago. So a lot of effort was put into this campaign. And we documented more than 10 different narratives, similar narratives, ahead of the German elections, discrediting politicians from democratic parties, but also spreading disinformation about election fraud. Also interesting was the dissemination strategy of these campaigns. The videos were spread not by bots, or not only by bots, but the actors behind this campaign typically reach out to real people, to real influencers, and then the influencers, the same set of influencers, spread those videos to their existing audiences. And both campaigns reached at least 23 million views on mainstream platforms like X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Telegram. So here some more example of AI manipulated videos or staged videos. This screenshot shows a staged video claiming that a migrant killed a German woman, and the Disinformation Actor tried to link this video to a real case. So there was a real case of a young woman who disappeared in Germany, and the Russian Disinformation Actor tried to claim that this real woman was killed by a migrant. So they tried to link the disinformation narrative to the real world case. And finally, just a couple of days before the elections, the Storm 1516 started to spread videos claiming that election fraud is taking place in Germany. In one case, we documented 4 different videos claiming that Alternative for Germany, the far-right party, is missing on the ballots in Leipzig. And in the other case, another staged video claimed that ballots with votes for Alternative for Germany were basically shredded in Hamburg. And all those videos were spread by influencers. And there was also a breakout because this claim about election fraud was picked up by AfD candidate in Hamburg. And she took screenshots from the staged video that was made by a Russian actor. She also recorded her own video and started to spread this full claim to her supporters. So those were the examples that we documented during the campaign, and the problem is that those kind of campaigns, they don't stop after the election. So just to summarize what kind of challenges we will face during the future election campaigns. This year, we already see an increased use of artificial intelligence for production of content, not just in the form of manipulated videos or manipulated pictures. It became much easier for foreign disinformation actors to produce a whole set of websites and fill them with AI-generated text. It became much more easy for them to translate text from Russian into a set of languages. The FERMI actors are constantly looking for loopholes in platforms' policies and their enforcement. And we know this from internal documents of Social Design Agency, the Russian private company that is behind the doppelganger campaign. So in the minutes that we see that those actors constantly discuss what kind of posts are taken down by the platforms, how they can look for loopholes, how they can create the content that stays on platforms and reach the widest possible audience. From the same set of leaked documents, we also know that Russian FERMI actors closely monitor debates and the discourse in target countries. And they look for, on the one hand, they look for narratives that they can amplify. So not all the content that Russia was spreading ahead of the German election was completely false. Sometimes, and quite often, they try to amplify just political opinions. And they constantly look for stories that they can amplify and spread, but they also look for potential collaborators. So on one hand, they look for example, as I showed with Storm 1516 influencers that can spread their narratives for money or because they have similar ideological views, but they also try to craft the stories and the narratives so that they are organically picked up by domestic actors, politicians or influencers. We also know from those minutes that the FEMI actors are try to adapt their tactics to the recommendation systems of social media platforms that prioritize highly engaging content. So they try to not to they create those elaborative false stories, but they also create a lot of memes, short videos, and other types of potentially viral content. So they closely monitor the information environment and they try to adapt their tactics to those changing information environment. And most importantly, they don't stop after the elections. So the discreditation of Friedrich Merz continued also after the elections. It's a long-term goal of eroding trust in democratic institutions that particularly Russian actors are following, and they try to build audiences in the time in between the elections. So that's why the preparation to defend the future election should start right now. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer the questions.
Thank you very much, dear Julia. And this has been a very nice showcasing of incidents which on the surface appear to be trivial, but they're very elaborate and in those cases AI enabled, which is something that we need to bear in mind. Carl, I may invite you to take the floor.
Right, thank you very much. And thank you for that very interesting assessment you shared with us today. My name is Carl Larsson. I'm with the Swedish National Police Authority as an analyst, mainly dealing with various kinds of threats directed to Swedish police officers. Not disinformation in particular, but that sort of translates into things we see on the ground for our police officers. And I'm actually leading our efforts in analysis in anticipation of our own elections in 2026. So for me, it's very much interesting to be here today and listen to all you guys. I will briefly present 3 narratives of disinformation, or rather themes, present in Sweden, and how various groups would take advantage of these for whatever political or ideological gain. And the 3 narratives were the so-called LVU campaign that emerged in the summer of 2021 and all throughout the fall of 2021. I moved forward with the Quran burnings in the spring of 2022, and how that led into the anti-NATO messaging in the summer of 22 and beyond. And the various actors who took advantage and benefited of these of the spreading, being the Islamist extremists, the right-wing extremists, or state actors, respectively. And these campaigns had direct political impact, but it also caused several injuries and even deaths over the years. So I'm starting up with the so-called LVU campaign, and LVU is essentially translates into the law for the care of children, and it's a law or piece of legislation that has been around for about 35 years. And as with most cases of disinformation and subversion, similar to conspiracy theories, they start with the truth, right? But it's twisted and distorted to fit the purpose of the antagonist. The same is true with this campaign, which centered on the narrative that Swedish authorities would kidnap Muslim children. The truth is there are and were instances where social services would intervene in a family, removing children from the care of their parents and place them in a foster family. The reason would vary. There could be, substance abuse, physical abuse, the children not attending school, etc. There had been several cases prior. I mean, the piece of legislation has been around for about 35 years, but they did not entail this narrative. But for whatever reason, in the summer of 2021, one case did. The extended family of this particular case, it's the very large extended family, in the hundreds, several hundreds, accused the social services for outright kidnapping. And the story started spreading throughout social media. Bit by bit, the story got viral. More cases flocked to this narrative. And it culminated in December of 2021 when there was a public service radio news story that had looked into these cases and found that a majority of these cases involved Muslim children, otherwise, a small minority in Sweden. Overnight, this became a global news phenomena because now it's out there in the legitimate media as well. And the story was picked up by extremists affiliated with Al-Qaeda, Daesh, on all the various channels, be it Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And the narrative was particularly hard to root out, as the Muslim population in Sweden in general exhibit a stronger suspicion of authorities than the general population. And there's great reliance of news from non-traditional media, that is media which is less inclined to fact check its news stories. Several varying actors, ranging from violent extremists to local politicians, would use this narrative in their own messaging to gain support for whatever cause they would adhere. The extremists, they would just use the kidnappings to justify acts of violence, not only in Sweden, but globally. And fringe politicians would try to gain votes in local elections by campaigning for an overhaul of the social services as a system. And speaking of the burning of books, so this leads into the next narrative that we saw. So this was in the early spring of 2022. This new issue would arise that it had existed prior, but due to the elevated tensions that we saw on social media, it would literally explode. So right-wing extremists had organized public burnings of the Quran and other Islamic writings. And the momentum of the already instigated, predominantly Muslim LBU following shifted focus. A new narrative gained traction. They not only kidnap our children, but they also burn our sacred texts. Essentially, the narrative strengthened the us versus them feeling. And for the right-wing extremists, this was ideal because as a reasoning for burning the Qurans was to incite and to instigate counter-demonstration and acts of violence. So by burning the Quran, people would be upset and use violence. In Sweden, in contrast to most other countries, it's not criminal to commit heresy. You can burn any religious text or symbol unless it's for hate speech. Instead, they are treated as any other public assembly, subject to approval by local authorities and by protection of the police forces. Suddenly, with the police, we found ourselves in the middle of two conflict and disinformation campaigns. One side accused us of supporting the burnings because, we're there, we're protecting them. Even though it's our mission to protect the right of this public assembly. And the other narrative accused us of suppressing the very same right to assembly, as sometimes we would disallow certain places. We would say, oh, you may burn over there, but not over there, because it's easier to achieve a crowd control. For the sake of public safety. So back then, I was actually one of the analysts tasked with writing the threat assessments in support of these police operations, because we would have to send several hundred police all over Sweden to go wherever they would burn the Quran. It was an immensely hard task, as there were several burnings planned in a very short amount of time. Some of these passed without any attention. Some of these escalated into public riots. Arson, battery, destruction in its wake. It goes by the name of the Eastern Riots that took place in March and April of 2022. So in the studies and reviews following these riots, there had been no evidence that these were instigated by any single actor, but it goes without saying that the ongoing disinformation and social media did not help in preventing them. The narrative that Sweden, albeit indirectly, supported Quran burnings would eventually find its way back to the same violent extremists that propagated the LBU campaign just months prior, so back to Al-Qaeda, back to Daesh. And a year later, in 2023, 2 Swedes would actually be killed by Daesh supporters in Brussels, who used the Quran burnings to justify his action. And I was actually stationed in Brussels at that time. and we had to make very quick assessment. Essentially, no more carrying or speaking Swedish in public places. Everything just shut down, which was quite traumatic for the whole Swedish expat community. And this is a good but extremely tragic example of how two different actors, so in this case it was the right wing and the Islamic, can use the same narrative but for different purposes and opposing goals. The last example I'm gonna talk a bit about follows both the logic and the timeline of the two previous campaigns. And this is all about the NATO accession. So following the Russian invasion of Ukraine in the spring of 2022, Sweden, as you know, applied for a full NATO membership. But suddenly we found ourselves subject to approval by Turkey, a Muslim majority country. And I'm not going to make an argument of the reasoning and power politics taking place behind the scene. That's not my field of research. But within shortly, we could see that Turkish news media would publish stories about Sweden, how we kidnap Muslim children, burn the Quran publicly. In Turkish social media, you would see voices being raised against admitting Sweden to NATO. And the Quran burnings and the LVU campaign now had another added motivation as a means to prevent the Swedish NATO accession, which would, of course, have huge implication for the Swedish, state security. And while not an extremist actor per se, it was well within the interest of Russia and also Iran to prevent such a development. There are confirmed ties between Russia and various right-wing extremists in Sweden who in general oppose NATO membership. And by supporting the Quran burnings and that surrounding narratives would surely aid in subverting such efforts. So these three cases, all driven by separate actors, are examples of disinformation damaging Sweden, Swedish institutions, and trust thereof. Neither of them originated nor were devised by an antagonistic actor, but they were picked up, exacerbated by some third party. And herein lies the issue and why the issue of disinformation and subversion is such a threat. As I liken to conspiracy theories, they are hard to refute as there is some fragment of truth behind it. And with the abundance of information available today with the internet and social media, and that we as humans, we tend to gravitate towards information that confirms our current conception and our own bias, while at the same time we filter out all that information that disproves us. So how can we mitigate the effects of disinformation should the police commit resources to investigate these narratives? It's coming from the police. It's a very hard question to tackle because obviously the democracy is, so should the police police the public opinion? And the difficulty lies in that well-performed disinformation campaign is hard or even impossible to identify what is disinformation and what is a legitimate opinion. What is judicial definition of the crime in question? All these three cases that I presented, I mean, essentially they're all black swans. We had one just prior, the COVID pandemic, and when that happened, we couldn't foresee it. But then we also couldn't foresee the vast amount of disinformation stemming from the misconception people had about COVID. I mean, you remember how they torched cell phone towers because that correlated with people living and with the spread of COVID. And one way to address this, and that we try to incorporate in Swedish police and in our operations, is to engage proactively. We mentioned strategic communication to address issues early before they snowball in this vacuum. And to achieve that, we must continue to monitor and assess messages in traditional and social media. In 2024, Sweden adopted a new national strategy against violent extremism and terrorism. Essentially, it merged previous strategic documents, one for violent extremism, one for terrorism. But with the overlap of issues, it's much better to keep them as a whole. And this is the joint undertaking. Subversion and disinformation is not primarily a focus of the Swedish police. It's the security service. We have a psychological defense authority who does this. We also have the civil contingency agency when it's not directed to the police, but all the other parts of the Swedish government. We also, of course, have a Center for Preventing Violent Extremism, who all work together. And this should be implemented by September of 2026. So currently, we're in a stage of learning from the past to improve how we can do better in the future. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I will give the floor.
Very much. Thanks very much, Carl. I think you showcased a serious issue, that of distinguishability, which is your job, of course, all intelligence analysts, but also a question which I will suppress for now, but I will raise later, is how to pass from early warning to early action, and who should do what. I mean, this is, you refer to certain agencies in Sweden, and that would be a very interesting topic for discussion. But I have the pleasure now to invite the third speaker, Panayota Kokoliou. For her, no? Okay, you're the master.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, and thank you all the previous speakers, that it was very interesting what you said from your perspectives. And I would like to begin my presentation on behalf of Convergence with a small lesson learned that I saw from Carl Larsen presentation about early warning and monitoring social media. So I believe that the role of trust in civil society, resilience against the disinformation. Also in Convergence through FERMI project, we believe that this exactly, it's very important. We see the problem in the beginning. We see all in our everyday life, many posts every day, that it is very hard to see how, if it is false or if it is true. So emotional false, as you can see here in this diagram from an article that it is published in a journal, Science Journey, shows that the emotional false posts travel faster than the true facts. So trust breaks, and if you ask me why that happens, it happens because we are all humans, of course. We are all humans beings. If we see something that it is very shocking, we believe that we should post it immediately without checking. So this is why I think that with what Carl said, it is the monitoring. It's sometimes the solution, and also to educate people to monitor what they see, if it is true or if it is not. So the digital trust. Why digital trust here? We believe that matters. Give me only 1 second. because I'm trying to change the slide by here. Okay. So, what is digital trust? Digital trust is trust in three things: the person, the information, and the way we can check something. So we're in trust when we say what we know, what we don't know. As you can see, the sources, we have to find the source. For example, if we see in a journey an article, or in social media, because also the disinformation spreads through social media, unfortunately, very, very easy. The author, the journey, everything. So when people trust and learn how the process, how they can trust something, they can pause and before sharing to see if this is true or if it is not, and they have time to read. And then we see the digital trust and media literacy, how they can fit. And we see that together, if we explained also to the civil society what it is media literacy, to give media literacy, it's to give skills to people to use, to check things. Who said it, if it is true or false, and how we can verify. So digital trust also, it's our behavior. And we see that together, if we can train and educate people, and when we say people in civil society, we don't speak only among us, we also speak for the general public. Think, for example, about our parents, how the most of us or our relatives, they say, I saw this in internet, so it is true. So together, the media literacy and the digital trust, people can have the skills to check, and they can have a reason to believe if something is false or no. So what we've done in the Convergence, and we saw an impact, and I would like to present and discuss today from the concepts, what we've through the desk research, the FERMI, to the community practice. We had in these 3 years project 3 external webinars with FERMI participants, and also to speak about FERMI and what we do, and also external participants about topics like media literacy, disinformation, and digital trust. But it is we see that it is very important to clarify the terms, to clarify as much as easier what it is disinformation, what it is malinformation, what it is misinformation, because then they can understand and become more and more familiar. And I would like to see you this diagram, because you can see here we run pre and post surveys during our webinars. We try to explain, as I said, the concept of disinformation, a lot of concept, not only disinformation, but it is some example from our webinars. So you can see here how we try before the session, and after we ask the same questions. How familiar are you with the term disinformation? And you can see that the increase here about the participants, the civil society, become more and more familiar and very familiar with the understanding of disinformation, because if we can understand the term, it is easiest to mapping when it comes, for example, in a social media post, and also about the concern about disinformation, how can be harmful or not. So with tangible examples, as also Julia presented in her beginning presentation with tangible examples, for example, from the social media. We try to do this. Also here, another here diagram about the ways disinformation spreads and evolves. In the beginning, you can see that most of our participants was slightly familiar, moderate familiar, but at the end, after the session, from familiar to very familiar, they understand easily how the disinformation can spread and how can evolve. And at the end, I also added from the first or second survey webinar, the familiarity with the term digital literacy and what it is digital literacy. And you can see also that at the end, the most of the participants was very familiar with the term. So for us, and because I don't want to take a lot of time to allow us to have a dialogue, we conclude we conclude to a conclusion, if I can say. We had the conclusion that education, from learning to habit to trust, education is the bridge. So this is our, let's say, our statement. We see really difference between pre-webinars and post-webinars in the information that are spreading very, very fast, because it was something that I said also in the last webinars. Once FERMI started, it was fake news, and now it is disinformation. So we see a really speed change in information and in disinformation and how this evolves. So we need to speed up, to monitor earlier, and to prepare the civil society to prepare and to be more to be ready to identify the new terms, what it is happening in the social media, and not only in the social media. And we believe in the pilots, because of course the sample, it is not very, very large. It is from FERMI project with 3 webinars with small sample. We can say in research as pilot that we can see really impact in the changing and help the civil society, and not only the civil society in general. Thank you very, very much. I'll try to be to be in the time, because we have also the dialogue.
Thanks very much. Panayota, do not go away, because now I would invite all 3 speakers, as a matter of fact, to come to the front, and I will take that microphone without destroying too much the the infrastructure. So thank you very much. Also, the third presentation. Are you afraid? Come here to the front. Also, the third presentation showcased, let me be here in the middle, probably, that has been one of the defense strategies: trust, education, media literacy, and trust. Before I open the floor to the audience in the room and online, I wish to ask a more general question, because you have been dealing with that topic for a couple of years now. What is different nowadays than a couple of years ago? Can you sketch the trend? What is becoming different in the disinformation landscape? What is coming upon us?
Okay, I think because I have in my mind during also the presentation, I think in our perspectives, in my perspectives, that also the AI, it's very, very, it can become very, very dangerous for this to spread the disinformation, especially through the social media, and especially for the general publics, because it is really hard, from my point of view, for the general public to understand something that it is AI production, to understand that easily that it is it is disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation, and it becomes also really difficult. That's why we believe that educate them through the media literacy and the digital trust, it's easier just to show them that when you when you see something, you have to pause before spreading and to identify if it is real, if it is not, why it is here.
Let me be provocative, but would education and digital literacy would cut there? I mean, would it be effective? Because in my case, I think that I would be very easily tricked, for example.
Mhm.
What do you think? I mean, you presented those very elegant EA-enabled things. I mean, I would not be able to recognize them very easily, to be frank.
Yes, and that's why we need to adapt the tactics of digital educations to the tactics of the FEMI actors. So when to answer your first question, the what kind of trends, what I was also monitoring the previous German election. I worked for a different organization at the time, Institute for Strategic Dialogue, and I would say I see three different things on the side of disinformation actors, information environment, and the recipients. And when it comes to disinformation actors, the major change is a definitely much more aggressive action on behalf of Russia. So Russia is targeting Western democracies not just online but also offline. So, for example, ahead of the German election, there was a case when Russia hired basically petty criminals for an offline attack on cars to discredit the Green Party, and also the car disinformation campaigns became much more aggressive and more inventive. So with new tools, new AI tools. The second change is the information. It became particularly some social media platforms became much more conducive to disinformation efforts. For example, when we talk about X, we and other civil society organizations, researchers have been in touch with X about the doppelganger campaign, but the campaign is still ongoing on the platform. So there are not enough efforts on the side of X to stop this campaign, and this is something that needs to be done as well. You can't just educate about the campaign. You need to take efforts to stop it. And when it comes to recipients, on the one hand, I think there is definitely more awareness of disinformation. But on the other hand, there's also a part of audiences that they don't care if something is true or false. So when we think about influencers that readily shared Russian disinformation, I think they knew that this is Russian disinformation, but they just don't care if that is true or false because it fits with their narratives.
Okay. Cognitive. I mean, it doesn't have any cognitive dissonance, so it is conformed. That's why it is easily acceptable. Carl, I have noted down the actor who disseminates recipient, vector, which is the platform, but also the AI technology. How have you been doing your intelligence? What has been changing? I mean, you have been in that business for 10 years. I've seen that change. So what is different now? What makes your job difficult?
So from what I've seen, it's just more of it. I mean, I grew up before the social media. I grew up with the internet. There were message boards, and if you made a statement that seemed far-fetched, someone would write back, pics or it didn't happen, right? So you need a picture of something to claim it's true. And then came Photoshop. So it's very easy. Anyone can change a picture. And then that turned into video. So you needed actual video of something to say that, oh, that was something true, right? Because it's harder. And then came deepfakes and social media, and things went viral. So from what I see, it's just more of it. But then again, people would have said the same thing when internet came and when radio came, and even when Gutenberg invented his printing press. But oh no, there will be text everywhere. People will read and learn. It's just the evolution, but it's evolving much faster, and we have to adapt to it, to the point where a lot of the issues that I face in my daily work is Can I operate within the current legislation? Am I allowed to do certain things? And the antagonists know exactly what I can and cannot do, and will use that, gray zones and hybrid threats. The antagonist will all attack you at your limit, where it's unclear. Because I just said in my presentation, it's not my job. We have the security service and we have the civil contingencies agency. There's always someone else, and we try to mitigate that by meeting. I just got our own, not my government agency, but my sister agency, their report on the German elections. Like, I just read that, so I can prepare for the next one. I happen to engage with German authorities too in that matter. So it's just, I see more of it.
So thanks a lot. What I keep from your response now is that we should not panic, and I like it a lot that you see it as an evolutionary adaptation. We need to be adaptive. We need to adapt to that new reality, and we need to be clear on which instruments will be the most effective. I see already someone in the audience that would like to pose a question, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Georgios. One question from my side. Julia, you mentioned these cases in Germany where presumably from Russia, cheap agents were recruited over the internet to do things in order to promote a certain campaign against the Green Party or a particular candidate. Is that something, and that's a question to the entire panel, is that something or a tactic that we see also in other countries, or is that unique to Germany?
Thank you so much. Yes, so there were reported instances.
The microphone is only for the online participants,
Okay.
but not for the room. The microphones for the rooms are there, so perhaps louder.
Yeah.
For the room.
Thank you so much. So similar incidents were reported in France and some other countries. So this is a tactic, and we also saw mentions of those tactics in the documents of social design agencies. They mention graffitis, so they think not just in terms of online. They try to combine offline and online actions. And for the acts of sabotage, Russia recruits the so-called throwaway agents in different European countries. So yes, this is a tactic that is not unique just to Germany, but it happened to other countries.
Absolutely. In Sweden, we had the Russian ambassador on national TV for about half an hour and just spreading disinformation. And the journalists tried to make an effort to retort, but it was steamrolled essentially. But no, we see that all the time, everywhere. I can't say a number, but yeah, absolutely.
It's exactly. I had the same answer. Not the Russian ambassador in Greece, but yes, it's the same. Also, I think in Greece, I have to now remind to myself an exact incidence, but I think it's the same in the whole Europe.
Yes. Hi, good morning, everybody. Just a question for the entire panel. I've heard throughout the presentations different terminologies surrounding the disinformation and fake news. So I actually did a bit of research. I'm a researcher myself in Portugal. And this difference in terminology when we consider like fake news, malinformation, misinformation, I think these are the three strongest points. But then when we look at the higher terminology, where would you put it? So in terms of taxonomy, I mean. So would you say that fake news will be the highest and disinformation, like the European Union, for instance? Or would you say that rather like some academic scholars, do you put it misinformation is the highest in the taxonomy, and then we have disinformation and malinformation, for instance. In terms of actual crime as well, we know that different terms might be associated with stronger and more high-stake crimes. So, for instance, disinformation is often categorized in association with more extreme crime. In terms of, for instance, in Sweden, do you see that happening or not particularly? I think that's my question. Thanks very much.
Yes. Feel free. Much appreciated the scientific question, because the definitions and concepts and methodologies do have an impact on what we receive on the plate, after all. So, would you like to?
Thank you for your question. So I would not see these different terms as a hierarchy, but they have some overlaps. So, for example, when we speak about disinformation, is a intentional spread of false information by domestic or by foreign actors. In my presentation, I was also talking about FERMI. This is a term that is used also by the European Union. This is called foreign information manipulation and interference. The focus in this definition of FERMI is not on the content, which is either true or false, or sometimes it's false, but with a grain of truth, but on behavior. So FERMI is a phenomenon when foreign actors try to intentionally manipulate public discourse with false narratives or with artificial amplification of particular political opinions. So here's the overlap in this. And fake news, I would say it's more, I would try not to use the term fake news because it's more, it's used in the press. It has been really inflated in the recent years. So now everyone can be just called fake news, just the opinion that people don't like.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting question. I'm gonna reply that as a layman and not in the academia. I'm a bit freer to express myself. No, of course, it's an issue that we talk about roughly the same thing, but there's an overlap, and that itself can be exploited as disinformation. I think it's great that there are standards, and I will rectify myself and try to use the official, especially in foreign language. And in Swedish, we essentially only use disinformation. We can talk about subversion, but that's a wider topic with different actions. And information is just one parameter. You had a follow-up question on Sweden. What was that? I'm sorry. If you could just.
Just in a specific use case, say Sweden, what researchers found is that disinformation itself, the concept is more associated with crimes, which is, let's say, misinformation, which might be some newscast saying, okay, they say there's three people dead in a car accident, but it turns out it was 7. That might be categorized as misinformation, but that's not necessarily linked with the crime. I'm asking, within your experience, if you know that different terms are more associated with crimes than in others. But I guess you just answered that you just use disinformation for pretty much everything. So I guess that's answer.
Sharing more light on that topic, but I mean, one of the common tactics that I can see is that they would use one number for something and then apply that to something else. I think it was last night, Viktor Orban made a statement was in a newspaper or somewhere or a video claiming that, 280 Swedish school children have been apprehended for murder. Well, I can say that no, that's wrong. That number was from a German newspaper about something else, like just not murder, but a wider range of violent crimes. But that number is out there, and if you Google it but don't read the text, you will see the number and say, so it's published in the German newspaper, so it has to be true, right?
It's malinformation. I mean, this is a malinformation, and just to also, I don't have something to add because you covered the topic, but this is what also we had the intent to do through the webinars, to see the evolution of how from the fake news we went in 3 years to disinformation, to misinformation, to malinformation. So at least I see that now we can understand that what you describe it is a malinformation, a true news that it is used it is used to harm. I mean, the number was really true, but for another case, and they took it and they presenting in order to harm, in order to present it like as another incident. So I think this is more or less also on my side the answer, that it is a topic that the past 10 years it is very, very rapid. The evolution it's very, very rapid, and maybe in 1 year or 2 years we will discuss for also other terms, new terms in the fake news era.
Thanks a lot for that, which means that terms somehow need to reflect the changing reality. And something which I picked up now from that exchange is that the existence or not of intention behind makes also a difference. So, please.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentations. A very interesting topic. Okay.
No one should be tricked by the fact that he or she holds a microphone, because the microphone is only for the online.
I get it, so yes.
And in the room, you are with your true voice.
Okay, I will speak up then. I agree with Julia's comments that it's very important to control the spread of mis or disinformation beyond what was said about the need to educate the public to try and identify what is true and what is not. With regard to reducing the spread of mis or disinformation, has any research been done on the effectiveness or the collaboration of the main social platforms, including YouTube, in helping to do exactly that, reduce the spread of this mis or disinformation? I mean, obviously, all the major platforms have a policy regarding fake news and attempts to twist the news or create or allow disinformation. But how effective are their policies in just preventing or reducing the spread of it?
Thanks a lot for nudging towards now the measures that we have at our disposal. The next session will be pointing to some examples of platforms designed, of course, for specific purposes. I mean, to do that sort of fact checking. But let me add also my question to that. It was very intriguing when Carl was speaking about the agencies in Sweden. So I was thinking, okay, you have done your job, you have done your intelligence collection, you have documented a case, evidence-based, and then what? Whom do you pass the information? Even if it is classified or open, and then who does what? Does anyone do something, anything at all? Who is that? So, I mean, I have teased you now, so feel free to be the first.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a very interesting discussion, and it's much larger than disinformation. From my experience over the years, because I've not only worked within the police, I've not only done these kind of issues. This is my personal opinion. I think we share way too little. There is a fundamental issue within intelligence, is that we are sharing too little because we made an assessment, so now we have to make it a secret, right? Because we can't tell the world what we know, and more, we can't tell them what we don't know, right? That's usually what we try to protect. And what I do is from my perspective, in my current capacities. I do assessments for the protection of our own forces. So I'd say that 99% of what I produce remain within my own government authority. I try to engage as much as I can. I try to share as much as I can with other authorities, be it the armed forces or security services or civil defense agencies, etc. But generally, we are, tied due to legislation, and that there is a fundamental idea that it's not eager to share; it's eager to protect what you know, and that's a cultural thing we have to change. I know the Americans are way better than most European countries. They share a lot more within their systems.
This is my question. Who does then what after you pass over the information internally?
Yeah. So,
I mean, who has done and has anyone undertaken any action after each one of those three cases based on your work?
Yeah. So what would I, in my position, I would always try to. I mean, there is a so what. What if I make an assessment and say, oh, the threat for this and this and this is that? Yeah, so what? What is the implication? I have to tell a commander, a police commander planning a police operation that you need this and this and this. Oh, they're gonna throw stones at you. Yeah, so bring a helmet. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's the purpose. What we try to do in Sweden is, intelligence-driven police operations. And not just run in guns blazing and hopefully things turn out good or well. Always try to give recommendations, because in the end, I'm just a support function. I'm helping someone make a decision to protect someone or something, even though it's an idea.
Can I ask you something? If you have it now in your mind, you said that Americans are far better, right? Did I understand correct?
Personal opinion.
Your person, yes, of course. Exactly. It's my question. If you have a mini, not a mini story, like a quick reflection on what exactly they do, that you believe that it is better. I really, it is interesting for me. That's why I'm asking, because we are in Europe, American. So that's, I would like to see the reflection, if it is possible.
Sure. I mean, I think that comes down to 9/11, when essentially, a massive cataclysmic event in the US where they had to pull resources together, and the intelligence failure, people did not share. They had information. And that's one of the things from the commissions in the years after, how they would improve. And I don't know, I'm not saying you need a cataclysmic event on that scale, but you need something to trigger change, right? You have to keep reviewing what you're doing, and you find if it's not working, then you have to, improvise, adapt, overcome, and change. They had that event, and they took full advantage of it. And of course, that had other repercussions as well. I'm not here to glorify the Americans, but they identified their key flaws and try to rectify that. And they share way more information that what I've seen working in different government authorities in different countries. They do it on a much larger scale than you could possibly imagine.
Discuss further, because I'm very interested. It's very interesting to me.
And
this topic
points also exactly to the third session of today. I'm making some advertisement because the third session is designed exactly in order to touch upon such issues. I have to admit that in the course of FERMI, we have identified such barriers, internal barriers that would need some innovation, not merely among and across platforms, but you need innovation also not merely in technological matters, but in legislation and also in institutional mandates, so that they can share within a state, let alone across borders, such crucial information which would enable action. I think if you would like to pick up still very briefly the question upon platforms, in your case, you have been examining those websites. What did you see any action taken against? They were taken down, or who was providing this fact checking and the who told them you have to put it down.
Yes, so during our monitoring, we reported the campaigns to the platforms, and some of the posts were taken down, some of the accounts were taken down, but not all of them. And generally, I would distinguish between measures against misinformation and disinformation, because disinformation is spread of information which is intentional, and this is clearly against platform policies. It is against platform policies when Russian actors set up thousands of inauthentic accounts, and those accounts have to be taken down. And moreover, platforms have to design mechanisms that prevent actors from setting up those accounts in the first place. When it comes to misinformation, it's a bit more complicated because it's not illegal and not even against platform policies to spread false information unintentionally. But there used to be mechanism against this as well. Collaborations with fact-checking organizations. This is now. Is taking back. So there's a huge turn after Trump was elected in the United States, with social media platforms scaling back their own commitments, also under the code of practice of code of conduct on disinformation in the European Union. So this is indeed quite worrying. But as civil society, we still try to work on implementation of Digital Services Act in the European Union, and platforms that committed under code of conduct on disinformation to take certain measures, they can be audited on this. Again, politically, there's a huge pushback against implementation of the DSA from the US. So there are many reasons to be pessimistic, but we will definitely try to continue to pushing for implementation.
We'll have more time to discuss on those issues during the second session, which will showcase also what 3 platforms are set to perform. So, yes, but I think, yes, we have first Sven.
Well, then I'll try to be remarkably brief. Apologies if my over 40-year-old hearing kept me from understanding everything that's been said. I have a question for Carl. Can you say a bit more about the specific ramifications of the disinformation campaigns you spoke about, especially as far as the crime landscape is concerned? Because that's something we're, of course, very interested in. FERMI, one of the tools we have developed, predicts the changes in the crime landscape in the aftermath of disinformation campaigns. So has there been, I know that correlation doesn't necessarily imply causality, but has there been a visible change in the crime landscape in the aftermath of any of those disinformation campaigns, as far as you can tell?
That's a very big question. I mean, all these cases, even though they are that I presented are 3-4 years old, I think we're still trying to grasp the ramifications. Then again, these were also, I mean, distrust in government authorities. I mean, that it's very hard to measure that, and that's something that it's of course being done. I can't answer straight away. Like, for instance, the LVU campaign targeted social services, and how the perception of that government authority has if it has declined or trust has increased. I can tell you that it's on the internet. I could Google it for you. But we've seen, especially during COVID, because people were now concerned for their own health. There were a lot of related crimes. There were fake vaccine shops, etc. People would give you a fake vaccine, either because you didn't want the real vaccine or because they believed they got the vaccine. And people made money of that, which is, they rode the wave of disinformation and the concern people had. And I think there could be so many examples for any of these cases that I presented that we've seen through that. But I can't tell you, from the top of my head, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Stick to that, because a little bit, because it is not merely that this information, okay, you read something wrong, and then you disseminate it. This is a crucial moment when something travels from the online world and it unfolds a detrimental impact in the offline world. BICS, in its role during the project, has been examining exactly that extremely risky transfer from the online fake news and how they impact on economic parameters in society. This example showcases that you end up with physical harm with the vaccines. That's not a joke. It is not just, false information. It impacts on reality. And this should be, I mean, given the fact that you have been referring now to the magnitude and to the spread, which is an important game changer, the volume, this is something which is directly in security related. We have received a question from the audience attending online, which refers to the digital platforms and the social media and their interaction with authorities and governmental authorities, which I would ask their colleagues from the second session to take up, because it is related exactly to the panels. But thanks a lot for the question. I was thinking about now not merely the vector, the platform, but also the actors. And okay, with Russia, I have to admit I wouldn't raise an eyebrow. They're worldwide champions. They do it extremely professionally, extremely effectively, and we know that, so to speak. But what about the Hungarians or the US, which have popped up as also actors of disinformation and destabilization? I think you do not need to have sensitive sources of information, because you have been reading that in the newspapers. Agents, US agents in Iceland trying to destabilize, to influence the public opinion. Is this something new, that it comes from actors that we were not expecting, from the corner that we were not expecting, from allies, from European partners within the European Union, from sources such as governmental sources? Is this something new that creates a lot of headache? What do you think?
No, I think going out on a limb here, I mean, every country influences every other country. Always. You talk about hard power or soft power. I don't necessarily think it's always. We often regard different countries as an entity, like everyone thinks the same way. I think we should be humble that especially democracies have. It's a union of opinions. Not every government official thinks the same. I mean, sure, there is a whip, but I think there are sub-interests. I can't comment on whether or not I see more state actors or more friendly state actors trying to influence things. But I mean, I would say Sweden, we do the same thing. We try to influence the world with giving IKEA and yada yada yada.
However, not with malinformation, such in the case of the Hungarian Prime Minister. This is what I was pointing at. So this is not the way it was working in the past. So, Julia, I mean, of course, I am aware of the fact that you have been specialized in Russian disinformation, but what have you seen out there in that respect?
Yes, definitely Russia is not the only actor. It is probably most aggressive actor from. So in the case of German elections, Russia was definitely the most aggressive foreign actor. But yes, the landscape consists of different state and non-state actors, commercial actors that are running disinformation campaigns. When we remember German elections, there were actors like Elon Musk from the US that was also supporting Alternative for Germany and spreading inaccurate information. And his posts get more reach than Russian campaigns. And when it comes to the interactions between different actors, sometimes they coordinate, but they don't have to necessarily coordinate with each other, because in the modern information environment, authoritarian actors, state actors, also non-state actors with authoritarian mindset, they learn from each other because they see each other tactics, they pick up narratives. For example, far-right actors in different countries, they constantly look for new narratives. So there are several examples of narratives from the US picked up by German far-right actors. The old story with the election fraud years ago, it traveled initially to Germany, and then it's here to stay. So the election fraud, alleged election fraud narratives will be probably repeated during the next election and the next one. So they continue learning from each other.
I think that I'm totally agree with what you said, because I think that we have a future in front of us about how also they're gonna be influenced other, for example, governments from what Russia or US do during, for example, before the election, during the social media campaigns, that sometimes it's completely disinformations. They spread completely disinformation. So it is not a specific example in my mind, but I believe that maybe in the next 1, 2, 3 years, also in the next elections as well, we will see maybe similar or not actions. So I believe that, and we also, it is a large discussion, because I think we can discuss a lot of it. Also, we have yes, and also we have examples in Greece as well, how they sometimes present information presented from the governance and from other sources. So yes, I think it's really a large discussion.
Thanks very, very much. I think thanks to your expertise and knowledge, and also the questions from the audience, we have set the challenge, and I think you deserve an applause. So I think we're going over to the break. The master of the ceremony.
Thank you, Georgios, and your entire panel for your discussion. Now I think we deserve a coffee break. The coffee you find downstairs in front of the student cafeteria. If you don't know what I mean, just follow me, because I will always find the coffee. And we have 25 minutes, and then we reconvene here. So thank you. Brew your own coffee.
Hello, Hannah? Hello, hello. I hope this works. Seems to hit this end.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Hannah, yes.
Okay, it's currently we have a coffee break.
Right.
So you are online, we can hear you. I don't know if you're in the next session.
Yes, the next session, which I believe is Janetta's, and I'm the third presenter. Unfortunately, I'm not able to present my slides or the video. So I've sent those to, I think to you, as well as Janetta. So if somebody could turn the slides for me or click on the video for me when I get to that, that would be really ideal.
You sent already the papers to.
Yes, the slides and the video.
Okay, I think
I
it will be.
I think I sent those, let me see, either late on Friday or yesterday. I think late on Friday.
I think we received everything. I heard something like this. So I think everything will be there online. And so when your session starts, there will be all your slides then.
Okay, so somebody could turn the slides for me.
Yes,
And or initiate the video for me.
yes, yes.
Brilliant.
There will be
Okay.
someone. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. All right, well,
Okay.
that's all I need to know.
Hear you in a
Sorry.
quarter of an hour, I suppose.
Yes, that sounds
Okay.
great. I think I'll just leave this link open on my phone.
Okay.
Talk to you then. Bye
See you
for now.
later.
Bye.
Bye.
here in Berlin and also in online. This will be the second session of the conference. My name is Jenita Rauta from the Police University College of Finland, and I'm pleased to be your moderator today. In the first session of the day, we explored the growing threats of disinformation across Europe. And now, as already mentioned earlier, we shift our focus to solutions. This session highlights 3 different platforms offering technology-driven tools designed to detect and counter the threats that I discussed earlier. And first, in this session, we will present, the session will present one crime-fighting solution, the FERMI, the first one. Then there will be 2 platforms focusing more on foreign information manipulation and interference. And because one of our presenters is online, this is not going to be a sort of a panel as the earlier one. But after each of the presentation, I will give you all time to ask questions and discuss. And then, of course, in the end, if you have more general questions for all the presenters, then you may ask them or present any comments. But now I would like to introduce our first speaker, Tobias Mattes. He is the head of criminal investigation department in Bavaria, Germany, responsible for major crime investigations and specialized units. He lectures on cybersecurity and police management at the police and external universities, and he has engaged in European security-related projects for over 7 years. He will present the FERMI platform. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Warm welcomes also from my side. I'm proudly today here and to present you the result or a glimpse view in our FERMI platform, that what we produced in the last 3 years. The FERMI platform aimed to help us law enforcement agencies respond to the violent threat of disinformation. FERMI integrates several technical modules that support investigations, assesses threats, and recommend countermeasures based on impact cost assessment. The platform is built around the need of us LEAs. It respects data protection laws, works across jurisdictions, and provides actionable intelligence, not just raw data. In the next few slides, I will introduce each of the core modules and explain how they work together. And I know we are very short in time, but maybe I will have a short time slot at the end to give you a view into the platform, how these modules work together, that you have a short overview over that. As we've seen, disinformation has far-reaching consequences, from influencing public opinion to triggering real-world violence. The FERMI Pro platform was designed to address these risks comprehensively. We've already explored some of the key capabilities: the ability to map disinformation networks, assess sentiment, predict crime trends, and recommend countermeasures. But how do all these capabilities of our platform come together in practice? On the next slides, we will briefly walk through these modules, like the spread analyzer, the sentiment analysis, the dynamic flow modeler, and the community resilience component. Let's have a look how they are interconnected to support us law enforcement, from initially detection all the way to the strategic response. First is disinformation spread analyzer module. This is FERMI's investigation engine, let's call it like this. When disinformation is identified on social media, the analyzer begins by mapping how the content spreads. It tracks interactions like replies, reposts, and quotes, reconstructing the entire chain of dissemination. Then it classifies the accounts involved as either human operated or bots, using machine learning. Finally, it calculates an influence score for each account based on its position and activity within the network. This graph-based approach gives us investigators a clear and structured view of how this information travels from one to another and who drives it. The Disinformation Spread Analyzer is a core tool of our platform for understanding how this spread works. It collects this data directly from the social media platforms X or Mastodon, builds a network graph of the post and interaction, classifies, as mentioned, the users as bot and human, and calculates the influence score. I will later show you how this looks in practice. This allows us to identify these key actors and posts in a disinformation campaign, all while staying GDPR compliant by not revealing personal identifiers. Step to the next module, the threat assessing. Once this disinformation network is mapped, the next critical question is, what threat does this campaign pose? FERMI assesses this using two complementary tools. First, it performs a sentiment analysis to evaluate the emotional tone of the content. Each post is classified as positive, neutral, or negative. This process is powered by NLP techniques, especially a fine-tuned BERT model. This BERT model allows the system to understand language contextually, taking into account word order instruction, which makes it especially effective for analyzing short, informal texts like social media posts. With this approach, we can detect if a campaign is emotionally charged, hostile, or potentially inciting. Second, by FERMI estimates potential real-world consequences using the dynamic flows modeler supported by the swarm learning framework. These components analyzes how disinformation events influence actual crime rates. It focuses on 4 specific types of crime, like assault, property damage, disorderly conduct, and theft. Using historical data in machine learning, it generates regional crime forecasts on NUTS2 level, projecting trends for the next 4 weeks. Combined, these tools give us law enforcement agencies early warnings, not just of digital activity, but of possible escalations into the physical world. After building this graph, we apply this sentiment analysis to evaluate the emotional tone of each post using a fine-tuned BERT. We can classify these posts and work with the results, even if they are very short, informal, or only full of emojis or slangs. This helps us assessing public mood and identify early signs of tension or escalation linked to disinformation. Here also, you can see down here, you see then in a real life environment, how this is then presented in the platform, the results to the investigator or the intelligence officer. The next module is the dynamic flow modeler. The dynamic flow modeler goes one step further. It predicts potential crime trends following a disinformation event. Based on this historical crime data, as mentioned, that was implemented in this swarm learning framework from 30 cities and the current spread of disinformation posts, the modeler estimates the number of crimes for the next 4 weeks. For the project lifetime, we had here the database from Germany. We had it from, please correct me if I'm wrong, where's Sven? From Sweden and from Belgium, as far as I know. For the technical partners, please correct me if I'm wrong. We had these 3 data sets implemented. because of the project environment. The next step is the behavior profiler and social economic analyzer. Once the threat and its spread have been analyzed, FERMI turns into the critical task of impact assessment and response planning. To determine how serious a disinformation event may become, the platform calculates a risk score based on 3 core dimensions: likelihood, severity, and population. If the result score exceeds a certain threshold and reaches at least 3 on a 5-point scale, FERMI activates its countermeasures module. This module suggests a set of actions tailored to the assessed threat level, ranging from immediate tactical interventions to long-term strategic initiatives. Examples for recommended countermeasures include, for example, removing or blocking fake news spreading accounts on social media, public awareness campaigns, especially targeting young users, or training programs for law enforcement agencies to better detect and respond to disinformations, for example, and so on. Ultimately, FERMI's goal is not just to react to disinformation, but to enable proactive, data-driven responses that improve long-term societal resilience and protect democratic stability. The next module is the Community Resilience Management Modeler, the CRMM. The CRMM supports decision-making by recommending countermeasures for high-impact disinformation events. It uses AI and a structured decision analysis model, the AHP-MCDA, to rank the most effective responses based on criteria like effectiveness, feasibility, legal compliance, and public acceptance. The system provides the top 3 actions or recommendations that law enforcement can take, saving time and increasing impact. You can see here, this is from the platform also, the tweet impact is here on a scale, and depending on the scale, here different countermeasures are suggested. The last module, or it's not a module, it's the infrastructure behind. It's the federated swarm learning infrastructure. Any AI model is only as effective as the data it's trained on. And in law enforcement, that data is often sensitive. Crime reports, personal information, and investigative insights. Sharing such information across border is not only technically difficult, but also raises serious concerns around privacy, confidentiality, and compliance with data protection regulations like the GDPR, as well as national regulations. FERMI implements a federated swarm learning framework, which allows each agency to train its own private AI model within its own secure infrastructure. Only the model parameters, not the data itself, are shared after that. These parameters are then aggregated to produce a more accurate global model. The key advantage, the raw data never leaves our premises or its source, but still contributes to a shared understanding. To further enhance privacy and resilience, FERMI goes one step beyond federated learning by applying a swarm learning methodology. In swarm learning, there is no central server coordinating the aggregation. Instead, the role of the aggregator rotates dynamically among participating agencies. This decentralized approach eliminates single points of failure, reduces the risk of targeting attacks, and reinforces trust among partners, all while enabling robust privacy-preserving collaboration. Within this architecture, law enforcement agencies across Europe can build powerful joint models share insights, and take coordinated action without ever exchanging the underlying sensitive or restricted data. To support collaboration across these law enforcement agencies while this protecting sensitive data, this federated and swarm learning approach is used as mentioned. But now let's do a hands-on that you can see how this looks in real practice. And now I have to try. Where am I? Ich finde die Maus nicht. Okay. 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 You can see. Let's start here. Now you can see the landing page of the FERMI platform where you can add investigations, you can title them, you can select the country, because based on the country, the system uses all the information that is set for that country specialized. I will show you later on special informations about each country that is involved. During the project lifetime, we have this from the participating countries involved here. And further here, you can select the investigation used case, because the models are trained at the moment for this 3 kind of cases, like political interferences from extremists from the far right, about topic of health crisis, COVID-19 situation, as well as the far left used case story. Okay, after starting the does this work here? And here you can identify the starting point, the starting post, from which the system, the platform then starts to work. Because it all starts with the first identified disinformation or false information post in one of the relevant social media systems. And then you can hear the breadth as well as the depth. Choose and then create your investigation. Due to the fact that then a large amount of data will be processed, I have prepared here some information or some testing results from our used case scenario, from our police university cases. Here you can see that was the original post that we identified as disinformation post. We added in here, it was from the far left wing, and you saw it was from the used case or from the third pilot in June this year. In the first part of the platform, it's a little bit difficult for me. Okay. See, it was a post with a lot of interactions, but I will explain. Where are we? So easy with not having the screen in front of me. Sorry for this interaction. Here we have the starting point. That was the first. You see here the blue one. The blue one was the first account that spread this disinformation. It was identified by the system as human account. And you see here all the connections about the reposts or the comments, different colors or quoted edges that shows you in which network this information was spread. You see also here up here, there was here, for example, one bot account identified and directly marked in that network. And so you can follow how the information travels. Also, when you go with the cursor on the corresponding edge, you see the post sent account influence up here, as well as a sentiment with a probability. In this case, it was a probability negative identification. And here you can go through all of those and see all the results were calculated for them. That's the first part. The second, what is happening here? Okay. Second is a sentiment analysis tool that goes through all the tweets that are connected with that one. And here you see you have your 140 that were analyzed in here and then classified as positive, negative, or neutral ones. There also is a diagram that shows the timely development of the spread of the information. You can only look for 1 day or go around. It's pretty bit in picture. Very sorry, but with this screen, it's a little bit tricky. And the next part is here, the crimes predictor, where we have our NUTS 2 regions in Germany in that case, because I selected at the beginning when I created the case Germany. I can directly select here, you can see the single areas of interest and which impact the post or the disinformation campaign can have or will have to that region for the single weeks. You see here the first week, then and the second week predicted how the criminal rates will raise or go down in that context. You have here also in the information button explained how this works. If you use it for the first time, let's go down. And then we have here this countermeasures for community resilience tool, where the platform explains us, okay, this tweet with this range will have, in this case, a high impact. And the system suggests me the three best opportunities to react. Here it says, okay, promote fact-checking initiatives. I can open this here, then it shows me more text about it or more measures I should make. And now I can read it, I think, completely. Okay. So it suggests you a short version and a long version. And also you have here in detail explained behind what is the formula behind the tool, how does it work, as well as we have here the different country profiles for me. If I work the first time, for example, with the disinformation campaign from Sweden or from France, we have here short country profiles also within where I can read into the facts, what is actual legislation, etc. in that context of disinformation. Okay, I'm very sorry that I cannot give you a more detailed or from the beginning of the investigation, the complete flow now here, but this is due to the fact that would be a timely delay, so it's not possible to go completely through in here. Okay, and can I get back to the presentation? Okay. Okay, no, that's good. Okay. So if you are interested in further information about our platform and how the methodology behind works, you will find also for the FERMI project on the webpage. I have shared here the link because maybe after the conference presentations are shared, then you can go directly there and find a lot of more information about the topic. So thank you for your attention. And now I give the floor back to you.
I think I wanted to give him a little bit more time to present the platform, because I know that most of you are interested really in the platform. But a few questions. Do you want to raise a question?
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation of the FERMI platform. First of all, has it been developed in Europe?
Technical partners and the complete consortium are here from Europe.
The second question would be in regard to its potential use. In terms of countermeasures, I could envisage countermeasures such as publishing and distributing information that proves or shows that a piece of disinformation or misinformation was incorrect and why it was incorrect, and presumably such posts, those beneficial countermeasure posts, could be equally monitored through that platform. Is that right?
Not completely, because the platform only suggests you the countermeasures, but it's not a fact-checking platform, that it gives you concretely that these posts were wrong because of, and gives you related sources. That's not the case. It only gives you, in this first actual situation, you have to do, for example, awareness campaign because of this and that reason, but then the detailed campaign will be not set up by the system.
Right, but my understanding is that this platform allows you to analyze and monitor the spread of misinformation, disinformation through the social networks and so forth. So equally, you could take one particular post, which is a positive, constructive post, which counteracts some of these misinformation, disinformation posts, and see how that propagates and see what impact that has as a positive countermeasure against this misinformation. Is that possible?
I forward the question to our technical partners.
Well, because effectively what you're doing is you're following through the network a post or several posts, the impact they haven't been shared and replicated. So instead of doing it with some negative news, why not apply it to some positive news that counteract those negative ones?
But normally it should be not a problem, I think.
That's my view. So,
from my point of view. But honestly speaking, in the pilot use case, we only had the evil posts.
Yeah, no, but the reason I'm suggesting this is because it might allow you to monitor the effectiveness of counteracting positive posts.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sven, as coordinator.
Yeah, well, I think this comes down to who the platform is tailored to. So considering that the platform is for law enforcement agencies, we always had a clear emphasis on examining the criminal ramifications of disinformation campaigns, because law enforcement agencies have a clear mandate. So that's why we don't do any sort of fact-checking or what have you, because that's a part of the mandate of law enforcement agencies. And that's something we've been very sensitive to, because we don't want to overstep our partners to overstep their boundaries, because they need to operate, of course, within the boundaries of their mandate and within the boundaries of their law. So even though law enforcement agencies are trusted flaggers in accordance with the Digital Services Act, it's not their job to distinguish between what is true or false. And that would, of course, run counter to free speech rights and what have you. So we've had a clear emphasis on disinformation posts that implied some kind of illegal activities or that violated the law, giving law enforcement agencies not only the mandate to investigate them, but that required them to investigate them. And that sort of investigation process included examining their spread and thereafter their criminal ramifications were analyzed in the form of some kind of, well, you may call it predictive policing. The criminal ramifications were being predicted, and eventually the countermeasures were being proposed. It was entirely up to the LA, of course, whether to take them up and to coordinate with other agencies. We did not study the impacts of disinformation posts or non-disinformation posts. That did not require investigations because we needed or wanted to operate clearly within the limits set out by the general data protection regulation that clearly requires us to comply with data minimization. So we wanted to keep the amount of data we were studying as small as possible. That's why we only investigated and we only examined disinformation posts, including illegal activities or implying illicit actions, giving LAAs the mandate or requiring LAAs to investigate them, which was within the mandate of our project.
Yeah, maybe I ask you to kind of have your questions and share them to the end, because I think that we'll maybe go through the other platforms, and then I just have to take care of the time as well. Thank you, Tobias, and thank you for your questions and comments. To our next presenter, we have Valentin Porcellini. He's a software engineer at Agence France Presse Media Lab, where he designs tools for fact checkers, including the verification plugin. He contributes to the EU-funded project Vera AI and holds a master's degree in information science from the Cornell University. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. Thank you. Today I'm going to talk about another EU project called Vera.ai and the tools that we are making in this project. And I'm going to talk about the verification plugin, which is a toolbox in which we have these tools that are production ready, made within Vera AI. So Vera AI stands for Verification Assisted by AI. And so we're making AI models for media professionals for verifying content. So the verification plugin, if you don't know about it yet, it's also called sometimes InVid with Verify verification plugin from other EU projects. We have about 150,000 users. It's totally free. Some tools need registration. So this is a manual process and I can give you access. If you're interested, you can also reach out to me after. So feel free to scan the QR code if you want to install it, and this is on Google Chrome, or you can use the link u.afp.com/plugin. Oops. So as I said, it used to be called InVid with Verify. This is because the two EU projects in which it was developed were InVid and with Verify. Now, because we don't want the name too long, we're just gonna call it Verification Plugin. And when it comes to Vera AI, this project is going to finish in October and November this year. So the plugin is a toolbox, and we have multiple tools for different kind of media content. So we have tools for videos, we have tools for images, audio, text, social media, and even other tools that we're working on, such as an archiving tool to archive social media posts, for example. So I'm going to present today a few of the tools, not everything, because or else it's going to take too long. But I'll be happy to demo the other tools, or feel free to play with the plugin to try them for yourselves. So the first tool I'm going to present today is the keyframes tool, which is a tool for video. This is one of the most widely used tools that we have. That is being enhanced in the Vera AI plugin. So the way it works is the user is going to send a video, either a file or a URL. It works with YouTube links, for example. And then we're going to find with the different AI models different images that we think are the best for investigation. So what it means is that we're going to find all the best frames for the different scenes in the video that are not blurry, for which we can conduct investigation. So this is what the server is doing. And then we have another model that is going to detect the text, another that is going to detect the faces that are present in the video. Why is this useful? Because you save a lot of time when you're going through this kind of a server-based approach. If it's a very long video, you don't have to pause the video, take a screenshot yourself, find the best frame, because sometimes it's going to be a blurry frame because there is movement. So this is all handled by the server. And then usually the workflow after this is once you get these frames, you are able to do more investigation on these images. So doing reverse search, for example. So I'd like to show a use case. It's a very short video that was published on Telegram by Solovyov, who is a TV presenter in Russia. So this is an example from 2022. So let's have a look. Let's see if we can play the video. So we can see a narrative in this video that is being pushed. Apparently it's from Al Jazeera. So I propose that we go back and look at a little bit of this investigation that was actually a real use case that we worked on at AFP. So using the tool that I presented before, this is the kind of result that we get. So you can see different frames from the different scenes of the video that we had. So if we go on a frame, what you can do with the plugin, with just a right click, you can do a reverse search. So you can search for this image on search engines, such as Google or others, or even open all of them at once. If you have the plugin installed on your machine, you don't even have to be on the plugin to start a reverse search. You can be on any other website. Just right click on an image and you can do a reverse search. So for example, this is the kind of result that we get from Yandex, which is a search engine from Russia. And if we investigate a little bit further, we find that this image was actually in Poland, was published by Getty. And if we do a little bit of more research, we can also find that Russia and Ukraine were not at the Qatar World Cup. So this is starting to look a little bit suspicious. Now we can go on the Getty website. We can find the price for the image. We can find even more information. This image or this photo was taken during FIFA U20 World Cup between Ukraine and Korea, and was in 2019, not in 2022. Another interesting thing is you can see there is a watermarking. So you can see the Getty image watermark, which was not in the video. So it means that the people that made the video paid for this image to be able to use it without the watermark. And this led to have a fact check from AFP. And for the full story, we have a very short video again. And let's see if we can play it. And so there were other elements to the story that we were able to debunk. The goal within VeraAI is to be able to make tools that are going to improve the workflow and make these fact checks much faster than before. So this is the kind of video that we would like to aim to do so that we can fact check as fast as possible this kind of viral content. Another use case, a little bit more recent, for this keyframes tool is a video in which we had supposedly Rafale, which is a military airplane, that was downed by Pakistan. And by using the keyframes tool, we were able to get a frame in the video and use the About This Image feature in Google to find that this image was actually watermarked by Google. So it means that this image was generated by a Google AI model. Now let's talk about another tool to detect whether an image is generated by AI or is real. So first, before presenting the tool, a couple of points. At AFP, we do not just rely on a tool like this that is just AI-based. So usually we try to find as many clues as possible. So what we recognize is we ask fact checkers to look at other things, such as who is posting the content, what is the story behind this, and then add these synthetic detection results as a convergent clue, but not as just a conclusion by itself. Another thing that we did within VeraAI is we looked into how the detection rate degrades as the image has a lifespan on the internet. So this is the paper that is mentioned here. And we found that as the image is posted the first time and then reposted, turned into a meme, reposted on other social media platforms, we have a degradation in the detection results. So as a conclusion, what we preconize to the fact checkers is to try to find or to try to work with the image as close as possible to the first image that was posted on the internet. However, sometimes it's easy to know if an image is generated by AI. So in this case, which is an image that was reposted by Donald Trump on the Truth Social platform, well, there is 6 fingers, so it's a little bit easier. The model was also performing pretty well for this image, so that was good news. But sometimes we have a good score, and this was also a viral image. So we have another feature in the plugin, which is that if you don't get a good score, but another user had a very good detection score for an image that is very similar, we have a near duplicate detection service that is going to provide you with these images that were analyzed before so that you are able to a little bit deeper in your investigation. Lastly, we also had a use case a little bit more recent where we did not have a good detection. This one is a good detection, but it was a very similar image. And we did not have a good detection, but we had provenance information. So we had metadata in the image that were saying that this image was generated by ChatGPT. And so these metadata are C2PA metadata, which is provenance information. And so now in our tool, we are also reading these metadata so that we can display them in case they are present. So typically it's going to be coming from ChatGPT or Adobe Firefly, and you can see them on the bottom here. Now, last tool, and this is my last slide, to be very brief about it. This is something that we're working on right now. We are working on a social network analysis tool where you can upload a data set, and it's a Zschwimmer format data set. So Zschwimmer is a tool that is made by the University of Amsterdam that is open source. that allows you to scrape content on social media platforms. So you can upload such a data set in our tool, and then we have CIB features to help make sense of the data set that is being sent. So the first feature that we have is Score Tweets, which is developed by the University of Urbino within Vera AI. And it's going to look into CIB and how different actors interacted through posts and reposts within the data set that you're providing. And the other one is from Viginum, which is the digital interferences watchdog in France, also an open source tool. And it's going to look into how it's going to identify similar contents, but it's also using LLM so that if there is similar content that is not in the same language, it's also going to be identified. So this in a future update. Thank you so much, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Valentin. At least I have one question as an LEA. Although the Vera is designed for media, could it be used for law enforcement?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Right now, we are working with some law enforcement agencies. I also mentioned Vision before. They are benchmarking the AI models that we are making. We are open to give access, so it's not a problem. As I said, everything is free. And I would say the more people we have that try the tool, the more we can refine the tools. So yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. Sounds good. Do any of our colleagues here in Berlin have questions? Or, yeah.
Thank you very much. It was very. I would like to ask you, you talked about some metadata that you are looking at photos in order to understand if it is ChatGPT generated. You are also using GANs in order to find directly in the images if they are retouched by some LLM or some other GAN or transformer model.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't present this because it's a little bit more technical. So when you see the results, when I displayed the gauge, and maybe I can go back to this for here, for example, have different kinds of models that are specialized in different kinds of generators. And so GAN is one of them. Diffusion is another one. And I would say the newer models that we're working on are also specialized in working with images that are compressed, which is images that we find on social media, because, you know, on social media, images have to load as fast as possible. So they're going to be compressed and they're not going to be as the users uploaded them. And this can degrade performance. So these are things we're looking into. Yeah. Yeah.
Of the images that you talked about, so you are better detecting the first image. It's due to the degradation of resolution through reposting.
Yes. Change the image really. Plus what the social media platforms are doing. So compression over compression, for example. Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to use your question.
Yeah. That's questions. Yeah. Okay. There are a few questions online. First is the service of Vera AI free of cost?
Yes, it is free of cost. The keyframes tool that I mentioned first does not need any registration, so you can try it even without an account. The synthetic image detection is a beta tool right now, and you would need a registration. This is a manual process, as I explained, but this is free.
Then there is another one. How is the connection between the social media post and actual criminal offense, such as a bodily harm, damage to property, or theft, established/calculated? Or is this for the earlier? I was just thinking that
Maybe it is.
maybe it is for the earlier one. So maybe we save it to because I guess this was from the crime predictor of the FERMI platform. But maybe I thank you and give also enough time for the last presenter. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our last presenter of this session is going to be Dr. David Wright. He's taking part remotely. He is the Chief Research Officer at Trilateral Research and coordinator of the Athena project of foreign information manipulation and interference. He is the author of a book on FEMI case studies being published by Springer next month. Floor is yours, David. Just 1 second, because we need to set up.
Right, good. Thank you. So you can hear me okay, yeah? Is that yes? I guess I'll have to assume it's yes. Okay, so yes, as mentioned, I'm David Wright from Trilateral Research. I'm currently coordinating the Athena project, and I'm very happy to participate, at least digitally, at the FERMI final conference. The presentations and the agenda appeared to be very interesting, and certainly I found the last two presentations very interesting, and very relevant to what we're doing in Athena as well. So could we move to the next slide, please? Right. So I would like to just say that there's some quite good connections between Athena, the Athena project that I coordinate, and FERMI. The FERMI coordinator is a partner in the Athena project, which we're coordinating. And the Trilateral and the Bavarian Police Academy have a long history of collaboration. The Bavarian Police Academy was a partner in the CC Driver project that I also coordinated. And Trilateral was a partner in the cyberspace project, which was coordinated by the Bavarian Police Academy. And the coordinators of Athena, FERMI, Vigilant, SOFEX, and EU HIBNet are currently collaborating on a joined up policy brief where we are asking all of the partners in all of our projects to make one recommendation based on their work on their respective projects, to make one recommendation from their point of view. And so we hope to synthesize and group all of these recommendations from all of the partners in all of these projects and turn them into a policy brief for the Commission and various other policymakers. Next slide, please. So just some brief information about Athena, the title of which is an exposition on the foreign information manipulation interference, i.e. FEMI. The project started in November 2023 and it finishes in October 2026. So we're a little bit more than halfway through. It's coordinated by Trilateral and funded by the Commission to the tune of 3.1 million. And there you can see the Athena website if you'd like to go there for more information. Next slide, please. So we have 14 partners from 10 countries in the Athena consortium that you can see displayed on the map here, and the various partners from each of those countries. Next slide, please. Even though we're just over halfway through the Athena project, we've already produced some, I think, quite interesting results. One is this book that Springer is publishing next month on foreign information manipulation and interference. I think it's the first such book, and it's based on 32 case studies that we did in the Athena project. We also have produced a deliverable on tactics, techniques, and procedures, which I think is one of the most detailed such studies on TTP so far. That's also available online. We've produced an AI-based system for the automated analysis and characterization of FEMI campaigns. We're currently developing a questionnaire for evaluating potential FEMI and scanning the horizon for evolving FEMI. There's two different things there. The questionnaire is under development. We've already produced one deliverable on horizon scanning, and we're going to produce an updated version before the end of the project. And in particular, we conducted a so-called mini Delphi of 27 experts on the impact of new technologies on FEMI. One of the interesting findings from that mini Delphi of those 27 experts, we asked one question of those experts, which was, do you believe new technologies are going to increase disinformation in the next 3 to 5 years by one of 4 options? The first option was it's not going to increase it at all. The second option was that it's going to increase disinformation by 25% in the next 3 to 5 years. The third option was by 100%, and the fourth option was by 1,000%. Interestingly, 25 of the 27 experts said it was going to increase disinformation by between 100 and 1,000% in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think that gives a very good dimensioning of the challenge before us. One of others results from the Athena project is some tools for countering FEMI. And if I may ask the organizers if they could play this video. It's 10 minutes long. Describes all of the tools that we've been developing in the Athena project. And then if you could come back to me at the end of the video.
In this video, we will provide an introduction to the Athena technical work package, explaining how we are developing a platform to help combat FERMI online. We are going to begin by describing some of the tasks in this work package and explaining our approach to solving some of the challenges that we face. We will then provide a brief demonstration of the system, showing some of our search and analytical tools in action. There are 4 main tasks in this work package. The first is to source and collect FERMI data. In Athena, we have a goal to gather data from at least 500 websites and sources that can be linked to FERMI campaigns. Once we have gathered the data, we will process and store it in our internal knowledge graph, applying state-of-the-art knowledge engineering techniques to uplift the data to rich, highly queryable and reusable formats. We will also develop a FERMI toolbox, a collection of tools and services that can be applied to the data in the knowledge graph to provide further insights such as reliability scores for articles or probabilities that an image or video is a deepfake. Finally, we will develop a dashboard that will support journalists, fact-checkers, policymakers, and more in their exploration of the knowledge graph. The dashboard will provide powerful tools for filtering data and monitoring ongoing campaigns as they emerge. Let's begin by introducing the system architecture and seeing how it relates to the tasks we have established. This architecture provides a roadmap for our discussion of the Athena system and all of its major components. Beginning on the left, we have the data ingestion engine, which is responsible for harvesting data from the websites that we target. This engine is designed to be highly modular and extremely simple to extend. Because FERMI websites can be highly ephemeral, a modular, extensible system makes it easy to spin out new scraping tools to target new sources of data as they are identified. We are often asked how we select sources to include in our scraping platform. We rely on a variety of sources to help us in our decision-making process. Websites are selected for scraping based on investigations performed by the Athena team into 32 FERMI campaigns, reports written by organizations such as Viginum and the EEAS, and published research that focuses on disinformation campaigns. Data gathered by the scraping tools is passed into the data storage and treatment module, where it is normalized and stored for future processing in a database referred to as the harmonized data model. Data scraped from the internet will be noisy and arrives in a variety of formats. The harmonized data model is responsible for normalizing this data into a consistent representation. We borrow some concepts from STIX 2.1 and distinguish between 2 types of entity in our model: observables, which are blog posts, Telegram messages, etc., and identities, which are the channels or organizations which publish content. Note that we do not store information related to individuals. Content added to the harmonized data model is indexed by Elasticsearch and mapped using ORML into RDF XML triples that are stored in a triple store known as the knowledge graph. The development of this knowledge graph is one of the main undertakings in Athena. Building a knowledge graph using semantic web principles yields several advantages. We are extremely precise and clear in our language when we describe the data that we capture. We can perform analysis such as reasoning or network analysis over the graph. Because we can link to other data sets and other data sets can link to ours, we enhance our ability to collaborate with other researchers, and publishing our content as a knowledge graph makes it easier for other researchers to reuse our data. Key to all of this is the reuse of existing vocabularies wherever possible. We make extensive use of well-established vocabularies in our graph. But it's not just about what we can do, it's about what you can do too. We expose several APIs, including REST and GraphQL, to facilitate interoperability with other tools such as OpenCTI and MISP, and to empower the more technically inclined amongst you to build tools that query and use our data. New data is also sent to the FERMI toolbox, where the various analyzers process the content to generate insights. The results generated by these tools are written back to the harmonized data model, where they are again indexed by Elasticsearch and stored in the knowledge graph. There are 4 types of tool in our toolbox: text analysis tools, image and video analysis tools, network analysis tools, and decision support tools. All of these are hooked into an event-driven system, which means that they process data as soon as it is added to the harmonized data model. Finally, we have the dashboard, which can be used to query the knowledge graph and harmonized data model. We won't see much of this module today as it's still in the design phase. Now let's see some of these tools in action. We will begin by looking at the FEMI toolbox, as an awareness of the tools available will be helpful when exploring our data later. As you can see, we have 4 different text analysis tools currently deployed from the University of Cyprus. 2 tools for assessing the apparent reliability of a news source or article. 1 tool for classifying text as hate speech, and 1 for performing named entity recognition. We have also integrated a deepfake analysis tool developed by Storzy, which can be used to assess whether or not an input image is likely to be a deepfake. We are currently in the process of developing network analysis and decision support tools, and have a number of other text and image analysis tools in development. Like the data sourcing engine, the FEMI toolbox is quite modular, and adding new tools is quite easy to do. Let's see some of these tools in action. We won't try all of them, but we'll show off some of the highlights. We'll begin with the binary news reliability classifier. This classifier is a simple binary classifier that will produce a label of either reliable or unreliable for an input text. The classifier uses various linguistic features of the text to arrive at a score. It is built using a multilingual language model, meaning that while this demonstration will be performed in English, the model can handle other languages. We will use as a sample input the headline from a Pravda news article. Although there is nothing malicious behind this headline, I think we can agree that it is unlikely that a giant doll is the source of escalating fear of war across Germany. We'll run this through the classifier now. We indeed see that it returns a score of unreliable for this headline. The binary reliability classifier is connected in series with a multi-class classifier. If an input text is found to be unreliable, then it is forwarded to the multi-class classifier to determine the nature of the unreliability. If we take the same headline, we can pass it into the multi-class reliability classifier. Here we see that this headline is likely to be satire or possibly clickbait. The deepfake analysis tool can be used to assess whether or not an image has been digitally manipulated, producing a probability score based on its confidence in the produced label. If we upload an image to the service, we can see the return probability that an image is or is not fake. In this case, we have a 99% certainty that this is a deepfaked image. Each of these tools are run automatically on the content harvested by the data acquisition module, with the results being written back to the harmonized data model. This allows the user to perform some highly sophisticated searches, such as searching for documents that mention the war in Ukraine and have a high probability of being unreliable. This, of course, brings us to the harmonized data model and knowledge graph. This dashboard is an internal testing tool that we use for exploring our database and testing out some ideas for tools and visualizations. On the left, we can see that there are links to browse articles, Telegram messages, and media objects that have been harvested from the web. We can also explore the different identities that can be linked to content that we have gathered. If we click into one of these, we can scroll through pages of data that Athena has identified and ingested from the internet. The true power of this system, however, lies in our ability to query and search over this data. Let's take as an example a simple keyword search for the word Zelensky. This returns a number of articles that have been harvested by Athena. If we refine our search to exclude articles with an unreliability score of less than 0.6, we can now refine our search results to a much smaller subset, which appears to be specifically targeted at Finland. Selecting an object gives us some metadata about where it was captured from. We can see the date on which the item was created, when we first observed it online, and when we last observed it online. We maintain a link back to the original item where possible, and can provide some previews of the content. We can also browse through the outputs of the analytical tools to see what scores were given to the content by different analyzers. Querying this data can also be accomplished programmatically, and documentation is available for those interested in querying Athena from their software projects. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you would like to learn more about the Athena project, check out our website, projectathena.eu, for information, news, and updates.
Great. Yes, if you could show the very last slide, that would be great too. Yeah, so this is my last slide, and I just wanted everybody for your attention. Also, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond to them. As Gary said in the video, you can find more information about Athena from this website, or you can contact me, David Wright, at trilateralresearch.com. And if you're interested in knowing more about these tools that Athena has developed that Gary described in the video that you've just seen, then here is his email as well. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, David. I know that most of the people are quite hungry, but still we have 10 minutes time to have some questions for David, and then maybe afterwards also for the other presenters. Do you have any questions here for David? Maybe I can, or is there any? Yeah. Maybe meanwhile I can ask David whether this is already used by or tested by law enforcement agencies.
We haven't specifically invited any LEAs to use the tools. We have been inviting stakeholders generally. We have informed our contact list. We have a contact list of more than 2,500 contacts, which include LEAs, and we've informed them about it. I think it would be a useful tool for LEAs as well. Everything that you've seen in the video this morning so far is, I would say, at the beta stage, since the task or package 3 doesn't complete until the end of the project. But nevertheless, most of the tools are actually available for use right now.
There is some question online. How will the presented tool be implemented into practical use in law enforcement? Will this process be accompanied by you?
We aim to make the tools as self-explanatory as possible. No, I won't be visiting any LEA offices to explain the tools. However, we will certainly inform the LEAs about the availability of the tools, and if they have any questions at all, they can certainly get in touch with us. The tools are meant to be very user-friendly, and users can certainly use the tools without any required detailed training in advance. They're quite straightforward to use, just like I would say any search engine, really.
Thank you, David, for the presentation. I don't recollect having heard anything about GDPR compliance in your talk. I presume that you ensure that compliance, right?
Yes, well, actually, the video did mention that we're not scraping any information or presenting any information on individuals. I do believe in when Gary mentioned that we aren't collecting or displaying information on individuals, he did mention, as I recall, that it was we want to be in our GDPR compliant.
Questions? Then I might pick one question from the online, and it is a more general question, and it was already presented in the first during the first session. On digital platforms, for example, social media, should we as authorities, this is an LEA authority, use similar tools when spreading the facts and educating as antagonists, joining social media trends and creating emotional content, or does it work against us?
Well, if I may, I think that's a very good question. Generally, I would say LEA should use any legally available tools that will help them detect and apprehend any criminals, online or otherwise. So, yeah, I would be quite, I would take an advocacy position, definitely.
And there no other questions.
A comment. Well, a question, actually. Yeah. All right. So I'm asking on behalf of all of us who don't want to wait until the book edited by David is coming out. So David, can you say a few words about the case studies that you've examined in the book? In other words, are there any commonalities you've identified, and what are the key takeaways we should be mindful of when looking into countermeasures against FEMI that we are recommending to decision makers?
Yes, thanks for that question, Sven. As far as I know, this is the first book on FEMI, and it's entirely based on these 32 case studies, well, with some other stuff too, but it's largely based on these 32 case studies that we did. We followed the same structure or format for analysis of the case studies. It was basically based on Disarm and the STIX format. I would say about 2/3 of the case studies originated from Russia or were based on Russian FEMI attacks. We also looked at some FEMI case studies from or involving China, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Iran also. But by far the number of case studies were based on actions taken by Russia. The case studies range in date, I would say, from about, I don't know, 5 years ago until the middle of last year. Each of the case studies, I would say, is around 10 pages. We are certainly advocating the use of the same structure for FEMI case studies. We do think it would be useful to have a repository of similar case studies like those developed in the Athena project. some analysis of FEMI, like those put out by the European External Action Service, are great from a high level point of view and the trends and the sort of issues and themes that appear, but they don't really go into the same sort of detail on the individual incidents or campaigns that we do in this book, which should be available next month. So the publisher tell me.
Maybe one question that was already asked for the, or do you want to?
I actually have a follow-up question to David for what he just said. Now, of course, we are looking at case studies coming, from the axis of evil. But I'm wondering if you have any advice why it is that we are so unsuccessful in our foreign information initiatives. We don't need to manipulate when it comes to messaging in the other direction, towards Russia, towards Iran. Is there anything that we can draw out of your research, how to get better in influencing or informing the other side?
Very good question. Thank you for that. I totally agree with you. In each of our case studies, we identify some countermeasures, whether the countermeasures were effective or not. We also have produced another deliverable in the Athena project that looks at different types of countermeasures and how to analyze them. Generally, I would agree with your perspective that we need more active countermeasures, more active campaigns against Russia and China and North Korea and Iran and so forth. Russia, rather, in particular, is very active in spreading disinformation and FEMI throughout Europe, and it's definitely having an impact on the electoral process in Europe. Let's say, in particular, Slovakia is one example. I definitely think we need to be a lot more active in countering disinformation. The snag, as we and others point out, is that it's really easy, especially with new technologies today, to generate disinformation campaigns. But those who are attempting to counter those campaigns have to act within the law, which the attackers don't. And the resources that we need to expend to counter these attacks are orders of magnitude greater than the cost of generating the disinformation attacks in the first place. So, we have, I would say, a major challenge in front of us in the near future, maybe the long-term future as well. I mentioned this Delphi study that we did of experts who think these new technologies are going to greatly increase disinformation in the next 3 to 5 years. So, we have a huge challenge in front of us. We in the West, let's say, which is not made easier by the withdrawal of the United States from these kinds of fact-checking and disinformation, anti-disinformation campaigns.
There's one question, and then I have to. This has to be the last one.
David, just a very simple question. We now live in information warfare, so we are living in an era where disinformation spreads very swiftly. My question to you is, when adopting countermeasures, when to decide if it is necessary to adopt a countermeasures or to ignore a countermeasure. I'm saying if the event in question is not very, it causes some damage, but it's not very damaging for the community, how do you decide to adopt or not countermeasures?
I think it's a really good question too. Thanks for that. I think with the flood of disinformation that we experience already, let alone what's coming towards us, we need to have some automated tools for making those kinds of decisions. It would be nice to say that it's a political judgment about whether we should invoke some countermeasures against a disinformation campaign. But realistically, I think that's impossible. We need to have automated tools for countering these huge number of cases. So I think it's really good that the Commission is funding projects like Athena and FERMI and Vera AI and others. The Commission definitely sees the value of the research from these various projects, and I would say they're hoping that these projects are going to be super helpful in countering this flood that I mentioned.
And I really thank all of you who have participated, and also a big thanks for the presenters. I guess we see you on session 3, and yeah, don't go.
Thank you very much to all of you who participated in this panel. So we take a 1 hour, 1 hour, but exactly 1 hour lunch break right now. You already saw where the cafeteria, the university cafeteria, is located. You can not pay there directly. If you want to have lunch there, you need to contact Dimitri, and he will sell you a voucher that allows you to get as much food as you like to. And to everyone online, I hope you cook yourself a good lunch. And we see each other in 1 hour back for our 3rd panel. Thank you very much.